Don't look at the money. Sometimes I will bring them the opportunity and purposely not talk about the money to see if the category or the product itself is something that they would actually use and be proud of endorsing versus just taking the money.
Welcome to Celebrity Focus Insiders with your host, Rick Backrack.
Well, my guest today is an industry lifer, pretty much like me. We probably go back, 35, 40 years in the business. Steve Rosner is the founder and toll collector, as he's fond of saying, for 16W Marketing in New Jersey, but also across the globe, and has been a co-founder at ISI as well, which later became part of SFX. I know a lot of initials there, but Steve's truly one of the power brokers in the sports marketing business. Represents people like Howie Long, Boomer Esiason, Cal Ripken Jr., Cris Collinsworth, Phil Simms, Hakeem Olajuwon, Clyde Drexler. This is a who's who of the sports business. Steve, welcome this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure, Rick.
I want to jump right into it. You've been doing it so long. What are the trends you're seeing today in the business, and how are things maybe a little bit different than what they were 20 years ago, let's say?
Well, first and foremost, the communication and the different kind of distribution channels, I would say, is the number one difference from back 20 years ago, and then as far back as you and I go, 35 to 40 years ago. So there's different places that are viable options to provide content that talent can do for either a media company or as a product endorser. So I would say that would probably be the biggest change that I've seen over the years.
Do you have current deals that tell us about a few of your current deals? I know you've got Howie, and I think he's still with Skechers, maybe with Chevy as well. What are some of the other things you've been working on the past couple of years?
Well, obviously since 2020, when COVID hit, you had to be a little bit more creative. You had to go talk to your partners and say, how can we be more productive for you at this time when not only the world is struggling, but you might be have to adjust your business plan. So, for instance, we created opportunities where, Zoom access would be something. So instead of making personal appearances, we did more on Zoom. We did Super Bowl previews for, I don't know, we probably did 8 or 10 of those, even last year as well, which was able to take an existing sponsor that we're working for, Cris Collinsworth, with Western and Southern Financial out of Cincinnati, is a good example where, they thought that at that point, using somebody like Cris was an asset for them to be able to connect with their consumer.
Well, how do you roadmap a deal? You've got clients, and granted, you've had your clients for a long time. You sit down and initially, do you do a strategic plan with a client and say, here's what we want to accomplish? Take our viewers through kind of a step-by-step. How do you approach it? Or how are you going after your relationships?
Well, as you mentioned, I have a lot of clients that I've had for a long time. Howie Long, 29 years, Boomer Esiason, 29 years, Phil Simms, 20 plus years. I haven't really been actively recruiting new clients in more than a decade. So I kind of know what their wants and what their needs are. I also understand, and they understand where they are out there in their career. So, they are still viable options for companies who are looking to leverage a sponsorship, perhaps, or a consumer product that they're pushing at the moment. But I just think overall, you have to know your customer. And in my case, my customers are my clients. So I think the one thing that I've been constant with them, and they're all aboard, is just be yourself. Do not do anything and try to just chase the money. If you're not a social media person, don't become one just because it might help you get another endorsement deal. Don't do that. You are who you are, and be true to yourself. So I know what certain clients will do and what other clients won't do. And I have always tried not to force something that is not there, and then that's something that, speaks to who they are. So I think that would be the number one thing that I would say that I continue to preach to myself is, make sure that what the opportunity that you're bringing an individual client is one that's suited for him, is something that he would enjoy doing, and don't try to push something that is not there.
And are these deals, Steve, that you're typically going after? You're going to pick up the phone or shoot an email to, CMO or the brand manager in charge of XYZ, because that's a brand relationship you may want for one of your guys. Is it originating there, or are most of them originating with the buy side or the brand side coming to you?
A little bit of both, Rick. I mean, listen, whoever tells you that they get all their deals because of their hard work is not really telling you the truth. I mean, to be honest with you, proactive is really good, but sometimes it's reactive. You get a call from somebody and say, okay, we're looking for this. Do you have a client, or we're interested in this client? So there's a different kind of mindset when somebody calls you on a client versus you trying to pitch somebody on a client. So I am very versed on keeping up to date on who is doing what kind of deals, either if they're a consumer product that is doing something, or if a company is doing a sponsorship with either a team or a league and it has a connection to one of my guys. I usually then proactively reach out. I try to go to the senior level as best I can. Most of the time, I try to deal with the company directly if I can. But if I have a relationship with the agency, of course, I'm going to go there as well. So many ways to skin the cat. You just got to be proactive on what that is.
Steve, this is all great stuff. Wonderful. We're going to be coming back in just a minute. We've got lots more to talk about. To our viewers out there, you'll see somewhere on your screen where there's an opportunity to subscribe to this podcast. Go ahead and do that. It'll be somewhere around there. I'm not sure where. Click the button, subscribe to the broadcast. Steve, sit tight. We are going to be right back after these brief messages.
Hey, these are my shoes, and here's the rest of me.
Come to my window, I'll be home soon. You're in the arms of the angel.
It's about not just the fundraising, but getting people to understand how important North Pond is to Lincoln Park, to Chicago, to our natural areas, but also to us as human beings, to our need for connecting to nature.
So, Steve, welcome back. Lots more to dive into. So you've had this long and amazing career. You've done what? Thousands of deals, more than likely, not hundreds, thousands. Did you have a favorite? You look back on your career, was there something, or were there particular deals that really stood out that you looked at and said, man, that was the best. I loved that. But I want to know what it was, but also why, what made it great?
Well, to answer that, I think I'd have to do it in two portions. One is from a client standpoint, which one I kind of was, most happy about or thrilled about. And then from my end, creativity on making something happen. So I'll start with that. I was one of the first ones to, go to local television networks. And if I had one of the star quarterbacks or players playing in that market, to try to do some sort of weekly show. And this is, 25 years ago. And then when I went to them, when we got down to economics, I talked to the client, make sure he was comfortable with it, and say, okay, instead of me wanting X dollars plus, I'll just take X, but give me inventory in the show. And then I would then already have that inventory sold to a sponsor of theirs. So instead of a client being able to make $1 on a deal, that client was able to make $5 on the deal because we had already put in place and sold the inventory that nobody back then was really interested or kind of knew about it. So I would say that, and then I did that all through my career. If it was when we created the Experts Network, which was a company owned by our clients, Howie Long, Phil Simms, Boomer Esiason, Cal Ripken, Nick Faldo at the time. They owned the company. We would go out there to individuals and we would sell that we could provide all these guys at one time and bring them to you for content. So we went to Sports Illustrated first. And on a weekly basis, on a rotating basis, those guys provided content. Then we went to Bleacher Report. But at the same time, I would bring the sponsors along with it. I brought Allstate one year. I brought Ford one year. And basically, not only they got a talent fee and a rights fee from the outlet that we were working for, but we also were able to get the dollars from the advertisers that we got in the negotiation as far as inventory is concerned. So I would say that would be one of the ones that I'm most proud of as far as creativity and, being ahead of the field, to be honest with you. As far as an individual client, Rick, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Howie Long and Radio Shack. I mean, they set the record. I believe the count was 143 spots, if I remember correctly. Second all time with Terry Hatcher. A second all time of a campaign and a number, and it went on forever. And it was great. It was one that you started out as a test to see if it worked, and then after it worked, it brought Howie in a different light. Howie was, came off as a Pro Football Hall of Famer. He had done some film at that time, but the way that he was positioned in these commercials showed a different side of Howie. I think he got much more of his acting skills from the Radio Shack spots than he did in the 3 or 4 movies that he was in. So, and obviously you were involved in that, Rick, and that's when our relationship really took off. And so I would say that would be a deal that I look back out and say, I'm glad that we started off as a trial and it ended up, I think, better than anybody could ever imagine.
Right. That was 158 commercials and a heck of a run from 1996 to 1998 to 2006. Terrific run. Any deals that you've done or been a part of throughout your career that you look back at and you say, yeah, that wasn't the best connection ever? And more particularly, because I'd love for you to really illustrate a point, which is what makes a deal great, what makes a partnership great between a brand and talent, and what makes it bad, because we've all seen the occasional bad deal.
Well, I'm going to start with the positive first, which would be, what makes a good deal. A good deal is a fair deal. I've always been somebody who is not looking to squeeze every dime. I am a person that's looking for long term. I tell my clients, hey, we might be able to squeeze here, but I'd rather get I'd rather get more return than I would get initial dollars. And I've used that in the media world. I've used that in the endorsement world. Good returns equals return business. I mean, so I think I think the other side appreciates that as well. So let's just be fair. Let's be fair on money. Let's be fair on services. And let's be fair on upside. Because if it works, you want the upside. So I would say that I'm tough at times when I need to be. I fight for what's right, but I just don't fight to fight. I don't want to squeeze because I think, and my history says that that's worked pretty well because some of the corporate sponsors that I've been involved with, I've been involved with 20 years, and that's not always the case. As far as the one deal, I mean, there's one deal in my career that still bothers me. It was more of it was a book deal, actually. I was representing Lawrence Taylor. They had won the Super Bowl. And a couple years later, we got approached about doing a book deal. We ended up doing it. Some things in that book I cringe at that they actually stayed in the book. Truthfully, I asked them to get it out, but they weren't taken out. So if I look back on it, I was a young pup. I was a little bit too aggressive. I probably should not have recommended it to my client. And that's the one, really, it's really the only one deal that I really, regret doing.
What, it's funny, by the way, you say that, because if I have one deal in my career that I regret, it's also a particular book deal that I put together several years ago. But that notwithstanding, we also have plenty of good book deals. So we're not knocking the business. What are the things that you look for when you're looking for relationships, brand relationships for your client? And I'm talking more about attributes. You're looking at a brand, and let's say right now you're speaking to a brand manager. Through the eyes of the talent and the eyes of the talent's representation, what are you looking for to make the essence of that relationship great?
I look at credibility. I think that if somebody approaches us for a client and it doesn't fit who they are, the credibility for both the product and the client is going to be questioned. And there's no reason to be questioned. So I would say that would be number one that I look for. For years, for instance, at least once a year for about 4 or 5 years, I got, I would get an inquiry from Viagra. It just doesn't work for my guys. They offered a lot of money, and money can't buy everything. And in this case, one of them I didn't even bring to the client, to be honest with you, because I knew it wasn't for that person. It just doesn't fit who they are. And then, I remember years and years ago, we had this conflict. We were representing Steve Young, and it was Diet Coke, and he's a Mormon, and we had all this go back and forth. Is this right for him or not right for him? Is he willing? Is he not willing? So I'm big on having conversations with my clients and talking to them about, what do they think about it? Don't look at the money. Sometimes I will bring them the opportunity and purposely not talk about the money to see if the category or the product itself is something that they would actually use and be proud of endorsing versus just taking the money.
Steve, this is great. So we're going to wind up doing a volume 2 another time. You've been a great guest. I want to thank you for being with us today and end on that, because I don't know that we could end on a better statement. To our viewers, again, I'll remind everybody to find out where that thing is that says subscribe. Join us. You can see the episodes on a weekly basis. Steve Rosner, I hope you enjoyed yourself. Come back and do it with us again sometime soon. And we'll see everybody later.
Anytime, Rick. My pleasure.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Celebrity Focus Insiders, connecting famous people with famous brands. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date and check out our past episodes at celebrityfocus.com.